Building sections. First of all, what are they? And many of you may know already what a building section is, but for those that don't, let me just talk briefly about them. They are a very important part of, well, particularly architectural design. Architects draw sections, like crazy. And as an interior designer, you may not always be drawing building sections. You'll probably be concerned about them if you're doing two-story spaces or spaces with balconies, or you're adding an addition to a building. Then building sections will certainly come into play. But oftentimes you'll be working in collaboration or in association with an architect. So she or he may be doing the details, the nuts and bolts of the literally nuts and bolts of the building sections. But you as a designer, you need to know what those sections look like and how a building goes together and what the pieces and parts of a building are. It's really, really important for us as designers, interior designers, to know how a building goes together so that when we are making decisions as to whether or not we're going to remove a wall, an interior partition, or put a window in a wall, we should know a little bit how construction works and what's all involved. So a section, I just found a couple of these little images here on the internet, and I just thought I would share them with you. Here's a house right here, and a building section is if you took like a great big knife or cleaver and came down and sliced right through the building, and then pulled part of the building away, and then looked inside. So we can see the interiors of the building, a little attic and two-story spaces here and two floors. And we can also see the construction of the walls and the roof. These are the foundations and footings below. And this is the section of the building. So let me show you a more stylized section. This is an image of the Pantheon in Rome, and I don't know if you've ever been to it, but if you ever get to Rome, it's going to be on your must-see list. And so the section here is sort of in the sepia color here, and the designer who drew this is wasn't really concerned about the construction of the building. They were more concerned with the interiors of it, and so the interiors are rendered really beautifully here, but you can see the section or the cut through the building here, and so you get an idea of the construction of it. You're not really seeing the nuts and bolts of it, but you are getting the section of it. And then I had one more thing that I just happened to see just this morning. Okay, so this right here is also a building section. So you can see the grade, or this is the ground or the dirt underneath, and the foundations extend down into the ground. Usually in our area, they're usually around 3.5 or 4 feet, because that's where our frost line is. When in the wintertime, the ground only freezes about 3 feet or 3.5 feet. So we put our foundations below the frost line so it doesn't, the foundations don't heave and, you know, topple the whole building. If you go down to Florida and you're designing a building in Florida, your foundations are a lot shallower because the frost line doesn't go as deep as it does here in Chicago. And if you're farther north, if you're in, probably northern Canada, the frost line actually goes much deeper than that. So just a quick little outline of a building section. All right, so let's look at our building section. So this is the section that we're going to be drawing today. And just like in the Pantheon section uh, that I showed you, we've got the interiors of our space, which we've already drawn. And as of right now, we just have that interior line that marks the edge of this elevation here. But now we're going to add thickness to the ceiling here and the walls and the roof line up here. And then this is the floor slab, and then these are our foundation walls. So the foundation, I'm going to quickly maybe just talk about this just for a minute here. So the foundation is composed of a couple different sections. The lowest one here, this is called the footing. And it is, kind of think of like a leg that has a foot on it, right? So when you're standing, if you didn't have feet and you were standing, the foot happens to balance you and help keep you stabilized if you're standing. And that is what the footing does down here. It stabilizes this foundation wall here. So what the contractor does is they dig a big hole, and then they form a rectangular concrete shape here, and they fill it, and then and let it set. That is the footing. Then they pour on top of it the foundation wall, and this is the foundation wall, and it runs all the way around the building. Everywhere there's an exterior wall, there is a foundation wall below it. So our exterior wall of our house is here, and it is sitting on the foundation wall. And you may notice these dashed lines that are running across. That signifies or delineates the foundation wall running behind. There's a foundation wall that's behind or underneath this back wall here. So this wall goes in, and then it turns the corner and comes back out this way, all the way to the other side of the building, and then comes back out toward us. So once the foundation wall is built, then they pour the floor slab, and this is the floor slab right here. And in our case, our floor slab is going to be 6 inches thick, but not often. Sometimes they're 4 inches, 4 inches or 6 inches, somewhere around there. And below the floor slab is gravel. There's 4 inches of gravel here. And below the gravel is compacted soil. So this symbol right here, this is the symbol for soil or grade or dirt, whatever you want to call it. And we're not sure it goes. Let me zoom out just a little bit here to get the whole the this indicates soil, and this curvy line here is telling us that that's sort of like a cut line. It's saying that this soil continues on, and it does. This whole area is going to be filled with compacted soil. So what happens is the contractor levels out the grade or the soil, and then compacts it, pushes it down, often with a machine that's tamping it down, and then pours 4 inches of stone over it, and then on top of that pours 6 inches of concrete. So the concrete in the middle area is sitting right on the compacted grade, or the stone and the grade, and then off to the sides the floor slab turns down and is partially being supported by the foundation wall here. You can see that there's a thin line here, and that's telling us that's showing the difference between the two different pours. When I say pour, that means first they pour the liquid concrete for the foundation wall, and then it sets, it firms up, and then they pour the floor, the concrete slab. So that is the when you've got a house that is slab on grade, You may have heard that term. What that actually means is the floor slab here is sitting on grade, dirt. Whereas if there was a basement here, then there would be, there would be another floor down here that this foundation would be deeper and then there'd be another floor down here. Or sometimes there is a crawl space down here. And what the contractor will do is pour a floor slab down here, and then all of this will be empty. And then, you have a crawl space below your finished floor here, your first floor. So, all right, then we build the walls, and the walls are comprised primarily of 2x4s. You may have heard of the term 2x4. I'm sure you all have heard of it. And those are studs, 2x4 studs. They're wood studs, and they run along the bottom and the top, and then between them, every 16 inches is another stud, and that runs along the full length or the depth of the wall all the way around the building. And then on top of the walls, we have the roof truss, which is this baby right up here, and we have the ceiling. The ceiling is comprised of drywall or sometimes plaster, but it is most times drywall. But the drywall needs to sit on something. The contractor needs to attach the drywall to something, and those are these ceiling joists right here. So we're showing 2x6 ceiling joists that are running up and back like here. So that is, in essence, what our building section is. So enough talk. Let's get into the fun. So I'm going to put this on my other screen so I can refer back to it as I'm working tonight. And this is our interior elevation sheet. This is just where we left off last time. And I'm going to go to black model space here. And before I go any further, so just so that I can distinguish the elevation sheet from the building sections, I'm going to do a save as and save this as I'm calling it Paul Gongola Project 8 Elevations. And I'm going to make a copy of this and do a save as, and I'm going to call this sections or section. We're only doing one building section. Okay, so now I have a drawing called Project 8 section. All right, so this is the elevation that we're going to be turning into a building section for, and I don't want to ruin this one. So what I'm going to do is just make a copy of it. And I'm just going to grab the whole section. I've got some dimensions on here, and I don't need to copy the dimensions. So I'm just going to take the elevation, and I'm going to copy with my ortho on straight down, just like that. So this will be my elevation, my interior elevation. I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to touch it. And then down here, this is going to be my building section. Okay, so just like in that Pantheon image, we're going to still see the interiors of our building here, and but what I want to do is I want to change all of this line work to an extra light line work. So I want the focus to be on the section and not so much on the interiors for this. So I'm just going to grab all of this interior line work, excepting these dashed lines here. I'm going to leave those dashed lines as they are. And I'm going to put all of my line work on the detail extra light layer. A detail, DETL, XLIT, extra light. So I'm just going to do that now. So just bear with me as I just get all of this line work, excluding those those door swing dashed lines. But and I'm also going to do, I'll leave the stone on that on the hatch layer, but everything else is going to extra light. These light fixtures, all of it. That one too. Okay. So when I plot this out, all of this is going to be light, and the focus, the attention is going to be on the section. All right. So let's start with I guess I'm gonna flush out this wall. I think I'll start here on the right side. And I've got, so this is this line right here. This represents the inside face of the side wall, right? Of our family room here. And it's a drywall wall, so this line is going to have some thickness. And the drywall generally is, well, usually it's either half inch if you're doing cheap construction, or it's 5/8 of an inch if you're doing higher quality construction. And we're going to do quality construction. So I'm going to offset 5/8 of an inch. And that is going to mark the thickness of my drywall right there. Now I've got my 2x4 studs, and they come in. Let me just come back. I'm going to go back and forth with this image here. So this is the cross section of a stud. This is how you show it. It is a rectangle and it has an X in it. And this is called a 2x4 because it is nominally 2 inches high by 4 inches wide. But the truth is, I said nominally very carefully, because a 2x4 stud in actuality, if you actually measure it, is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. It's not 2x4, 2 inches by 4 inches. It's 1.5 by 3.5. Why is that? Well, first of all, when they are cutting the wood, it's cut a little bit smaller, and then it goes into a kiln and dries. And the in the drying process, the wood shrinks, and then it shrinks down, and then they do a second, honing to get it more precise dimension wise. So the actual dimension of a 2x4 stud is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. That's important for you to know because you don't want to create a 4 inch gap here for a 2x4 stud when really the gap needs to be 3.5 inches. So let's offset 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches, and that's going to be where our studs are going to go. And we're going to draw a little 2x4 stud down here in a moment. And then the last thing to complete the wall construction is just like we have on drywall on the inside of the stud wall, we need something on the outside of the stud wall, which is often called sheathing. And sheathing is an exterior, here it is, 3/4 inch sheathing. Sheathing is an exterior plywood. It's a waterproof plywood usually, and on it goes whatever the finish of the house or the building is going to be. Sometimes, in this case, it's siding, vinyl siding or cedar siding, or it could be brick or stone or whatever it is that you as the designer want the exterior of your building to be. So you can see that in this instance we have siding running on the outside of our sheathing. So drywall is here, and then this is our stud wall, and then this is the sheathing, And then we've got whatever the exterior finish material is. In this case, it's going to be siding. So I said that the sheathing was 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to offset that one last line here, 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that is our the primary construction, and we'll deal with the shingles a little bit later, or the siding, not shingles, but siding. We'll deal with that later. But right now, I'm thinking about the main construction. All right, back to this one more time. I'm showing these lines pretty heavy here, and notice that I'm talking about line weight here now. Notice that the interior lines are quite light, and that's our extra light layer that we put them on. And then the construction lines over here are heavier. The heaviest lines on our construction, on our building section, are the inside edge of the wall and the outside edge of the wall. So the sheathing we're going to put on a heavy line. I'm not sheathing, siding. We're going to put on a heavy line, and then we're going to put the inside face of the drywall on a heavier line. And then these middle lines we'll put on something lighter. I'll just put them on the light layer, not extra light for now. And if I don't like it, I can change it later on. So I'm going to take these lines and I'm going to put them on a detail light. So this little line here, that should be on my extra light layer. Okay, so there is, and then what again, when I do the siding, I'm just going to kind of just draw it here. Uh, don't do this, but I'm just doing it just to show you here. Let me turn off my post steps. So when I'm showing the siding, this is messily drawn here, that is going to go on the heavy line weight as well. Mine's on my A anno dims layer. So A detail, extra heavy. So our wall construction, this side of the wall is extra heavy, and this side of the wall is going to be extra heavy. All right. I was just showing you that just so you had an idea. All right, so let's do a couple things. First, let me go on to my extra heavy line weight here. I'm making that my current layer. And I'm going to just draw like a little piece of floor here. Let me put my snaps on back on. That is going straight across like that. That's going to be the top of our foundation wall. That little piece of line right there. And right now, while I'm here, well, you know what? Before I do the studs, let's do the foundation wall. So the foundation wall is going to be 4 foot 6 inches from here to the bottom of the footing. Again, I'm going to slide back over to here. So here's the foundation wall. This is the line we just drew, but on the other side. And the foundation wall is going to be 4 foot 6. The bottom of the footing is going to be 4 foot 6 below grade. So I am going to offset this. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but I'm going to try to figure out the best way to do this. I'll just offset it. It may not be the best way, but that's what I'm going to do. So that marks the very bottom of our footing. And remember, the foundation wall will go on top of it. And the height of our footing is 8 inches, so I'm going to offset 8 inches up. So this will be the footing down here. This is just the bare bones of it. And then the foundation wall is going to come down like that. So there is our foundation wall, and it is 8 inches across or 8 inches thick. So I'm going to offset my foundation wall 8 inches. So foundation wall's here, and our footing is going to be here. Now the footing extends beyond the foundation wall 4 inches to the right and 4 inches to the left. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. I think I'm gonna O track over. So I've got my ortho on. I'm gonna O track over 4 inches, and I'm gonna come straight down 8, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. O track over 4 inches and come straight down 8 inches. And now I'll just fillet these 4 lines so I get a rectangular footing. Okay. So in at the bottom of the footing, or I'm sorry, the top of the footing here, you can see that this is the perimeter of the footing, and then there is a thin line here with a little notch, and that notch is called a keyway. So when the contractor is pouring the footing, he makes sure what he does is he puts a little 2x4 in here, and then pours the footing and then rips out the 2x4 so that there is a notch here. And the idea is that when he pours the foundation wall, it part of the concrete comes down into this footing area here, and it serves as a bracket. It actually helps to stabilize the foundation wall. So this keyway is something that we want to show. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to draw a little rectangle over here, and I'm going to make it 4.5 inches wide, 4.5. I'm using the rectangle tool, and then to get the horizontal 4.5, and then I'll hit my tab key, and that locks in the 4.5 inch width. And then I will do the height, which will be 1.5 inches, 1.5. Oh, I'm sorry. It should be 2.5 inches. Let me redo that again. So rectangle, uh, uh, all right, 3.5 inches. I'm sorry, it's already too late for me. 3.5 inches wide by 1.5. Yes, 1.5 by 3.5. Okay, sorry about that for the confusion. Just to make sure, it's 3.5 inches wide by 1.5 inches high. Sorry about that. So now what I want to do is I want to wedge this or chamfer this edge and this edge so that this side is sloping in to the right and this side is sloping in to the left. And the easy way to do this is, it doesn't have to be exact, is I'm just going to come in and with my ortho on, I'm just going to kind of go like that. And then this side, and if you are finding that you're snapping, turn your O snaps off. That can sometimes help you here. And just come in like that. It's not exact, but it doesn't need to be. That is all that we're going to need to do for that. And now I'm going to move this. Let me put my snaps back on so that the midpoint of my little keyway is right at the midpoint of the top of my footing. And I'm going to use trim here and just trim that out. Okay, so I'm drawing my keyway in the extra heavy line weight. So I need to change that. And this part is easy. I can put this on my A detail extra light layer. That's easy. But I need to do this piece and this piece here. So what I could do is trim this and then redraw that and put it on the extra light layer. That would be one way to do it. But let me just show you. I don't think I've talked about break in my CAD 1 class, and this is a perfect opportunity to do it. So there's a command called break, and it allows me to break a wall, not a wall, a line into two separate pieces. So I'm going to use the keyboard BREAK, and it's going to ask me for the object that I want to break. So I'm just going to select that line there. And you can see that as I move my cursor, it is shortening this line right here. It's breaking this into two lines. But that's not exactly what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to break it right at this point here. So I'm going to click down here where it says first point, and then I'll just choose this intersection right here, or that endpoint. And then the second point is asking for the second point of the break line. I'm going to choose the same spot, the same point. And now I have two separate lines. So I can, where's my match properties? I can put this on the, oops, I can put this little piece of line on the extra light layer. So let me do it over here. So break, I'm just going to choose the line, and then I'll choose my first point. So I will come down here to first, and I'll just choose this enter endpoint here. And what if I miss? What if the second point is here instead? Uh-oh. So I do have two lines, right? This one and this one, but I somehow missed, right? This line isn't coming right to there. Well, it's not really a problem at all. I could just take this, grab that grip, and bring it right over. Or I could use extend or fillet, but all I need to do is just make sure that this line is right at that point there. And I'll use match properties again, grab this. So there is my footing. There is my foundation. All right, this is looking great. So now let's look at the floor slab. By the way, folks, if you do have questions, just shout out. Don't be shy. All right, so my floor slab is going to be 6 inches thick, 6 inch floor slab over 4 inches of gravel. So this is going to be my floor slab, and I'm just going to offset that down 6 inches. And then I'm going to need to chamfer this edge here. And I'm going to use a 3x3 chamfer. And a chamfer is another command that, at least in my CAD one, we never talked about. So I'm going to talk about chamfer as well. So let me put this back on my other screen. And I'm going to offset my floor slab 6 inches. There we go. Let me just measure. Yeah, 6 inches. And now I want that little 3x3 chamfer. So chamfer works actually a lot like fillet. The command is chamfer, Chamfer, chamfer. And when I am chamfering, when I come down here, it's asking for the current chamfer distance. And it looks like I already set mine to 3 inches. Distance 1 equals 3 inches, and distance 2 equals 3 inches. But if yours does not say that, then what you want to do is come down here to distance, click on distance, and then AutoCAD's asking for the first chamfer distance, 3 inches. So if yours does not say 3 inches, type in 3 and enter. And then the second chamfer distance. And mine is saying 3 again. So I'll just hit enter again. And now it's asking for the first line that I want to chamfer. So I'm just going to choose the slab here, the bottom of the slab, and the left side of the foundation wall. And look at that. It's already creating, it's telling me that's the chamfer. Is that you what you want? Yes, that is. So I'll just left click. And there is my cute little chamfer. All right, this is looking good. So now I need to draw. Remember, there's going to be a separate pour for the foundation wall, and then a separate pour for the floor slab. And the floor slab is going to partially sit on the foundation wall. So I need to draw this little line here that is going to show the distinction between the floor slab and the foundation wall. And it's going to go on my A detail extra light layer. And I like to use this make current button. It's situated directly below the drop down. I click make current and then choose that extra light layer. And now that is my current layer. And now I will just start here at the bottom of the chamfer and go straight across. And I want this to line up with the inside of my stud wall. So my studs are going to be in here, this yellow line. So I'm going to just hover over here, come straight across, and then go straight up. So notice that the line is going in right here, right in line with this yellow line. And this line is where my stud, my stud wall is going to be. And while we're here, let's just draw a stud. So the studs, wood studs, are 2x4s, but in actuality are 3.5 by 1.5, 1.5 by 3.5. So I could draw the stud, but there is AutoCAD has, because we draw studs so often, just like doors, there is a block for it. So to access my blocks, you can, if you remember, you can go to View and then Tool Palettes, or you can hit Control 3 to open up your blocks palettes or your tool palettes here. And I need to find architectural here. So here's my architectural. And the tool palettes are divided into two areas. There's imperial samples, which are these, and then down here are metric samples, which are these down here. So metric means, millimeters, and imperial means feet and inches. So whenever you hear somebody saying imperial units, you know that they are talking about feet and inches. And right down here is a stud imperial. And that's exactly what I want. So I'm just going to grab it and pull it right into my drawing. I'm just going to randomly put it right here. And that's all I need this for, so I'm just going to close it off. So let me rotate it. And I'm also going to put it on the same layer as all of my wall innards here. So let me go back to my home ribbon, match properties, and I'm putting this on a detail light. And then I'm just going to carefully put it right into place right here. So there are studs, and this is called a sill plate. So if ever you go to a construction site and you see the foundation walls have already been poured and the floor has already been poured, then what you'll see is the contractor starts laying down wood studs on their sides, and then they bolt them into the concrete foundation wall. And this is called a sill plate. And what happens is all of the vertical studs that make up the wall, you'll see studs at usually 16 inches on center. That means every 16 inches, there's another stud. Those studs get nailed or screwed into this wood sill plate. So the wood sill plate is bolted into the foundation, and then all of the studs above are nailed or screwed into the sill plate. And then the drywall is screwed into the wood studs, and the exterior sheathing is also screwed into the wood studs. All right. So this is looking good. So let's now look at the ceiling area here. So, all right, I'm bringing my drawing back. So we're going to concentrate on this area right here. So this is our drywall. It's coming up, and then we've got a drywall ceiling. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to offset my drywall ceiling. The thickness of the drywall is, if you remember, 5/8 of an inch. It's a very common thickness for drywall, and well, ½ inch is also fairly common, but we're going to do 5/8 of an inch thick drywall here. And then these are just like these are the wood studs for the walls. We are going to have, let me zoom out here so I can see my notes. We are going to have ceiling joists for to hold up our ceiling, our drywall ceiling. And the ceiling joists are 2x6s, not 2x4s, but 2x6s. And just like the 2x4s, they're not 2.5, 2 inches by 4 inches. They are 1.5 by 3.5. Same with the 2x6 ceiling joists. They are 1.5 by 5.5. So they're knocking off a half of an inch. So instead of 2x6, it's 1.5 by 5.5. Common nominal size for ceiling joists. So the call out size is 2x6, but the nominal size, the actual size, is 5.5. So I'm just going to offset that 5.5. All right, so back to my drawing here. I'm going to offset my drywall 5/8 of an inch up, not into my room, but outside up. And then I will do the ceiling joists, which are 5.5, 5.5. And just like I did for, oops, sorry, pressed the wrong button. Just like I did for the walls, I'm gonna, for the innards or the area beyond the inside, I'm gonna go put that on the light layer. So I'm gonna put those on my light layer here. And I'm gonna fillet this here. And you know what? Actually, I'm gonna fillet this as well. Okay. So now I have at the top of my wood studs, I have two of these studs in section, just like we drew for our sill plate, and they are right up here. And these two studs are called a top plate. Sill plate, one stud, top plate, two studs. So you can do this any way you want. You can go over to the tool palette or that tool palette and bring in another one, but I'm just going to copy this right up to there. And then I'm going to make a copy of that so that I've got two studs at the top of my wall. That is my top plate. Okay, then I need to draw the top of my sheathing right here, and and then we'll start to talk about the eave over here. Um, so let me just draw. I'm just going to draw a little line across like this and fillet it. that line's on the wrong layer, but I'm not too worried about it. So that's the top of my sheathing. All right. Oh my gosh, look what I did. Instead of copying, dummy, I moved my sill plate to the top. So let me make sure. So don't do what I did. Copy, not move. So I've got my sill plate, one stud down here, and I've got my top plate, two studs up here. We're going to fill this with insulation, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. I want to get too ahead of the game here. All right. So our building, let me zoom out here. So our building eave, I've got dimensions over on this side, so I'll just go over here, but we'll still draw on the right side. So this is called the eave of our roof here. And what an eave is an area of the roof that sticks out. And the eave has two parts to it. The bottom part here is called the soffit, and the vertical part here is called the fascia. So we have a soffit and we have a fascia. So our eave starts 7 feet 4 inches from the finished floor line. So this is the line of the top of our floor slab. So I'm going to O-track up 7 feet 4, and then I'm just going to draw a line that is 1.5 inches wide, excuse me. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to draw the fascia, which is 8 inches high. So O-track up 7.4, draw a line 1.5 inches, 1 foot 1.5 inches, and that is the soffit, and then an 8 inch high fascia. But I'm going to do it on the right side. So, line tool, I'm going to start right here, O-track up 7 foot 4. And then my soffit extends out 1 foot 1.5 inches. I'm on the wrong layer, but that's okay. And then it goes up 8 inches. So that is the outline of my fascia. And these fascia boards here, uh, the fascia board and the soffit board, they are going to be 1/2 inch. So while I'm at it here, I'm going to offset 1/2 inch for the fascia and 1/2 inch for the soffit. And I want to trim this little corner right here. So notice that the fascia comes all the way down and then the soffit butts up to the fascia. All right, let me do some layer management here. This is going to be the outside of my building. So I'm going to put that on my heavy line weight or extra heavy line weight. And then this is going to be inside stuff. So I'm going to put that on my light line weight. Beautiful. And I've got another little stud that is going to go here because something needs to support this this soffit and this fascia. So I'm going to need to get a stud right here. So I could grab this stud and pull it in. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this my current layer. I'm just going to do Control 3 and bring in a new one and just bring it right to, well, I'll just, gosh darn it, it rotated it and I didn't want it to. But all right, that's fine. The whole point of bringing that in was so that I didn't have to rotate it, and now I have to rotate it. So not a big deal. I'm just going to move that right into place right there. So that stud is going to go to a larger piece that's over here that will flush out later. But let me just put the thickness of it out here, which is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to offset this 1.5 inches. I hope I'm not overwhelming you, but so we'll put the X's in here later on. Uh, and then I'm just going to draw a little line like this. It's just a, so this is the stud. This stud here is going to be screwed into my sheathing and my studs here, and then studs are going to extend out to this baby over here, and all of this is going to support my soffit and my fascia, or together they're called an eave. All right. So now we want to get the slope of our roof here. And that's strange. I don't have the slope shown on here, and that's disconcerting, but that's okay. I can tell you that the slope is an 8 to 12 rise. So what does that mean? And really, well, so for every 8 inches up, so for every 8 inches this roof goes up, it goes over 12 inches. So that is how contractors determine the slope of a roof. They don't think of it in degrees, like this is a 30-degree angle here, like we do for, other things. They determine it as rise over run. So the rise is 8 inches and the run is 12 inches. So that's an 8 and 12 slope. So to draw my 8 and 12 slope, I'm going to draw a few guidelines here. So I'm going to start right at the very top of my fascia, right here, and I'm going to draw a guideline up that is 8 inches. And then I'm going to draw another guideline that is 12 inches. That's my that's my 8 and 12 slope. And then I'm going to come back to the starting point. And that is going to be the slope of our roof. So I don't need these two guidelines. I'm just going to erase those. And my focus is going to be on that angle. So let me just draw another guideline up here, right at the very pitch of my ceiling here, straight up. And that's going to mark the center line, the peak of my roof. So where these two lines, this line and this line meet, that's going to be the top of my roof. So to find that, I can just very easily use fillet, and I'll just choose this vertical guideline that I drew and this line, the slope, and boom, there is the the slope of my roof. So what we will do later, and what's missing from this drawing, I'm going to draw it right now just so you can see it, is we draw this little triangle that is 8 and 12. And then we'll put little numbers here. We'll put an 8 here and a 12 here. And that is when you're looking at a section, or where you're looking at a building section or an elevation, and you see this triangle with two numbers like 8 and 12, that is telling the contractor or whoever's reading your drawing what the slope of this roof is. So I'm just going to move it out of the way, but I'm going to keep it because we will, when we start annotating this, our our section, we're going to use that.
Paul, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
The guideline at the top there, was there a certain distance that you made that?
The what? The which?
The one from the peak? How
This
long
here?
was that one? Yeah.
This height?
Yeah.
No, I did.
Or does it matter?
I just use fillet. So like I just drew that short little line like that, right? And then if you use fillet, it will put the two of them together and it'll find the peak for you. Is that what you're asking, Katie?
So I think so. So what was the short line? Like how tall was that one? Is there a
How
certain
tall is this
distance that you
line?
made that first when you made the first short line, did you make it any specific distance? Sorry, that's
I
confusing.
did. Yes, I did. So what I to determine it, all right, let me redo it. So to do it, you need to get that 8 and 12, those 8 and 12 lines. So I'm starting a line straight up 8 inches, and then I'm going across 12 inches, and then I'm
Okay.
coming back to the starting point.
Okay.
So that little line right there is the line that is going to mark the slope of our roof. Then I just filleted that line and this line to get my
And this line, the line from the peak, it is not any specific distance. You just
no,
drew it.
I just drew a little guideline right here. That was
Okay.
straight up.
Okay. That's where I was. I just want to make sure I didn't miss that that was supposed to be something.
No,
Okay. Thank you.
I let AutoCAD calculate where the peak.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. So, by the way, obviously, I'm not going to draw both sides of this. We're going to take this side and mirror it to that side, you know. So we'll flush out this side first, and then we'll go to the other. All right. So let's see. So our roof joist is also going to be just like this was a 2 by 6, which was 5.5 inches. Our roof joist also is going to be 5.5 inches. But first, I need to draw some sheathing. So the roof sheathing, and the roof sheathing is again plywood that's sitting on the roof joist, and then the shingles for the roof are nailed literally nailed into the plywood sheathing. So our roof sheathing is thick. It's a full inch. So I'm going to offset my roof line down 1 inch. Why is it so thick? Well, remember that the roof has to carry an incredibly heavy load. What is the heavy load? Snow. And if we were in Florida, this roof sheathing would probably be a lot thinner. But in Illinois, we can get, you know, lately we've been pretty lucky. Watch this year, we're gonna get it. But you know, sometimes you get 2, 3 feet. You know, when I was a kid, we I lived in Boston or outside of Boston, and they get on average every year at least a foot to 18 inches of snow. They get a real lot of snow over there. And a lot of times my dad would have to go up on the roof and he would shovel the snow off the roof, you know, because he was afraid that it was going to cave in. Snow is incredibly heavy. It's very, very, very heavy. So that's why we've got a big, thick 1 inch piece of sheathing there. And then I'm going to offset in 5.5 inches, and that is our roof joist, 5.5. And then so this is gonna I'm gonna extend this right here. So this roof joist, I know that a lot of these lines are intersecting, but it's totally fine for that to happen there. Um, and I just extended this line. And remember, to extend, you can either use the extend tool, EX or EXTEND, or what I like to do is use the trim tool and then hold shift and it will extend whatever lines you want. So while I'm here, I extended this up to here and extended this down to there. So I'm making sure that all of these lines extend properly over here. And then while I'm here, we'll just finish this off and I'm just going to draw that X running through this board here. And what that X symbolizes is that this is a big, this is probably a 2x8 or a 2x10 piece of stud here. And just like this 2x4, we show the X in it. We're going to show an X through that as well.
Hey Paul, really quick, can you just say what the measurement, how far out the horizontal line is again? I think mine's like a little bit off.
This line here,
Yes.
it is, hold on, let me look. It is 1 foot 1.5 inches.
Okay, perfect.
One
Thank
foot one
you.
and a half, and then 8 inches up. Hmm? And by the way, folks, I'm getting for the most part, at least the overall, the bigger dimensions are on the handout. So if you take a look, you'll see it there. All right. Um, so I think that is. I'm looking here to make sure that I think I've got the major pieces and parts here. I don't have the roof truss done yet, but I'm going to do the roof truss here once we have all of the building section lines on the left side of our roof, on the left side of our drawing. So, all right, I think at this point I am going to mirror carefully here. So, let me go to mirror here. So what I don't want to mirror. Okay, let's talk about what I don't want to mirror. I don't want to mirror any of the interiors, obviously, and I don't want to mirror the inside lines of my elevation. So these lines right here, I don't want to mirror. But everything else, I do. And I'm going to mirror it right along the midpoint of our elevation here. So let me go to mirror here, and hopefully I can get it right on the first time. And I'm going to use a crossing window here, and I'm going to carefully try to get everything outside of our elevation area. And if you don't quite catch everything, it's not the end of the world. You can come back and finish your mirror or redo your mirror or mirror the parts you missed. But I think I've got everything. So I've got the thickness of the drywall, I've got the studs, I got my joists, I have my eave, I've got my foundation wall. I'm going to have this is going to mirror on top of it. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to mirror that. So let me deselect that. And by the way, to deselect, you can hold Shift and deselect because if I mirror this line, it'll go on top of it, and then I'll have two lines on top of each other, and that is not good practice. I don't want to do that. So, all right, I'm just being careful here and diligent about making sure that I've got the lines that I want. Okay, I'm done selecting objects. I'll just hit my space bar, and then I can choose the midpoint of my. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to choose the peak of my ceiling here and come straight down with my mirror line. And this actually is looking pretty good. Erase source objects? No. If I do, then everything on the right side will be gone. And that looks not too bad. I've got some weirdness here, but I can clean that up. And I definitely have some weirdness up here, but I can clean that up with fillet as well. But I think I got it. So let me clean this up. I'm just going to use fillet here to clean up some of these lines that didn't quite extend. And I want my drywall to extend all the way to the peak. And I want my ceiling joist to extend. So I'm using fillet, but you could use extend, I guess. And I want that and that. think that looks pretty good. I've got this little line here. I want to put that on my extra light layer. I just missed that earlier. All right. Um, yeah. Okay. So now I didn't draw my beam here, but that's fine. I'm not going to put it on there. Okay, so now let us look at the truss. So trusses are often what are the all of the studs and are that are supporting the roof when they're made, they're put together either on site, but often they are done in a factory and they pre-make the trusses and then they put them on a big truck and then they ship them out to the site. That way they're done in a controlled environment and they're accurately done and they're right at the right pitch. It's a lot easier to build trusses in the factory than it is out on the construction site. So when you're building trusses in the factory, the truss is actually this triangular piece here, and then with these two studs coming down here and here. And then so what happens is they get attached to the top of the wall. The walls are up, and these attach to the top of the wall. And because they're in the factory, it goes up really, really fast and really, really quickly. You know what? I misspoke. This also is part of the truss too. So all of this framing gets put together in the factory, gets shipped out, and then they with a crane, they lift up the crane, and then some guys are up on ladders over here. They lower one truss down, they attach it here, and then they put the next one in 16 inches, and then 16 inches further and further and further until they're all up. And then they'll often have bracing that runs in between them. But one of the key features of trusses is all of these pieces are attached with plates. So you can see here there is a 12 by 24 attachment plate here, and then there's two little plates here that are attachment plates that are here that are attaching these here. So we're going to show these plates next. So this first one, 12 by 24. So I'm just going to use a rectangle tool, draw a 12 by 24 plate. And rectangle, and I'll just do it over here. It's easier for me. 24 inches wide, tab, 12 inches high. There's my plate. And then I'm going to move it from the midpoint of the bottom plate to the top of the drywall right here. This point right here. So the drywall, remember, this is the drywall or ceiling drywall. It comes up and then comes down, and right above it is this plate. And this plate is supporting these ceiling joists. They're actually bolted into this plate. So this is a steel plate, and then there's bolts here that are bolting these ceiling joists in place. All right, now on top of that is another joist here. This also, let me see what I'm showing on the handout here. I think these are 2 by 6s, but let me. Yeah, so the truss framing is, I'm not calling it 2 by 6s, but it's saying 5.5 inches. So this piece is going to be 5.5 inches. This piece is going to be 5.5 inches as well. So that I'm starting with this horizontal one. I'm going to offset that up 5.5. And then I'm going to extend it to here, and I'm going to extend this to here, and I'll trim that there. So that is that horizontal truss. And then this is a vertical here, and this is going to be 5.5. So I have the center line here. So I need to go half of 5.5 and half of 5.5. So half of 5 is 2.5 inches, and half of a half is a quarter of an inch. So 2.5 plus a quarter is 2 3/4 of an inch. Or you can pull out your trusty calculator. So I'm going to do a bunch of trimming here. I should really. All right. Let me get rid of that center line because it's confusing me. And it looks like these pieces here are behind our truss. So I'm gonna redraw these actually. So I'm just gonna trim out this. And I'm redrawing it so that I can put it on a hidden line. So I've got an A detail dash, and I'm going to draw those like this. And this is, I'm gonna draw this elevation, I think a quarter of an inch. And I think that these lines are a little bit long. So let me just open up my properties palette. Let's just see what I've got going on here. So a detail dash. I generally don't like doing this, but I want these dashes to be a little shorter. So I'm going to take this line type scale and I'm going to shorten it. I'm going to make it 0.5, half that. Yeah, now I have nice shorter lines. And I want to do that for both of these. I will generally shy away from this, but I think in this case I'm going to do that.
Hey Paul, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So my mouse cursor, instead of being a white X, it turned into like a green,
Wait,
purple, and red X.
wait. You're breaking up.
Oh,
Sorry.
so my mouse cursor, instead of being the white X that you have, it turned green, purple, and red. Do you know what that could be?
So your cursor turns green and red.
Yeah, the little X.
The crosshairs.
Yeah, the crosshair.
Um, Go here. Does it say 2D wireframe here?
Yeah,
It does. But your crosshairs are green and red.
yeah. It doesn't seem to be changing anything, so I think it's fine. I just wondered if you knew.
Uh, it usually means you're drawing in 3 dimensions rather than flat. Um, has it been that way all evening?
No, it just happened.
It just happened. And this says 2D wireframe. And does this say top?
It says custom view.
It says this is instead of top, this says custom.
Yeah. Oh, I changed it to top and it went back.
So click on top and change it to top.
Okay.
Did it work?
Yeah, it went back.
Okay. It sometimes happens. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Paul, I also have a question.
Yeah.
So I don't have the A detail dash in my layers. Would you be able to show me how to make that?
Well, so just, yeah, let me just, so it's just a layer, a detail dash. I made it color 151 and I set it to line type hidden 2 and it's a really, really light line weight, 0.09. Um, do you do you know how to make a layer?
Yeah, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's the properties of it. Okay, so let's talk about the insulation. So there is a line type, there is an insulation line type. And so I am gonna, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with, I'm on my, let me go back to my A detail light layer. And I'm gonna just draw from the midpoint of this top plate down to the midpoint of my sill plate. I'm just gonna draw a line. And I'm going to change the line type of this line to an insulation line. So to do that, here it is. It's called A detail INSL insulation. And it's really ginormous here on mine. Does everyone have this layer? If you do not, and you might, the layer name is A detail insulation, INSL. I have the color set to 30. And the line type is batting. And if you don't have batting, you can just click on it and go through your line types, and you should have batting right here. And this is also a fairly thin line. Actually, it's heavier than I thought it would be, but it's set to 0.2 millimeters. So, all right, my line has turned into these crazy curvy shape, and that represents bat insulation. So what is bat? There's a couple different kinds of insulation. There is bat insulation and there's rigid insulation. Rigid insulation very often looks like a thick piece of foam, styrofoam, and it's often used in below slabs, like, or if you have basements, there's insulation underneath here. But bad insulation is that not styrofoam, but the fiberglass insulation. It's often pink. You know, Owens Corning makes it. There's a couple uh, companies that make it, and this is the symbol for bat insulation. Now, what we want is our bat insulation to fit in between these two lines here. So what we've got to do is we've got to change the scale of our insulation. Just like we changed the scale up here, I'm going to need to change the scale of my insulation. So I'm not seeing my scale or my dashed lines here. So I'm going to regen there. Now I'm getting it. So if you don't see your dashed lines here, all you really need to do is type regen, and you should be able to see all of your dashed lines. All right, so to change this, I'm going to click on the line. And again, in my properties, I am going to play with the line type scale. So I'm not exactly sure what it needs to be. So I'm kind of guessing here. So I'm going to start with 0.5. And it's smaller, but not there. So let me do 0.1. Well, 0.1 is almost there, but it's extending beyond those two yellow lines. So that's not quite it. I want to go a little bit less. What if I do 0.0? 0.8. I don't know. What if I do 0.09? So that actually is good. 0.8 or 0.9 is good. It's okay if it pulls in a little bit, but that is set to 0.09, my line type scale, and that seems to work pretty well. Okay, so now I need to do the same thing over here. So for this, it's going to be hard for me to go up, and what I did over here was I drew that line half of this distance. I think I'm just going to do, let's see what that distance was. It was 1 3/4 of an inch. So I'll just do 2 inches because I'm lazy. So I'm just going to offset this up 2 inches. And this is going to be, I'm going to turn that into my bat. Oh, you know what? I see on the handout, I said make it 2 3/4 of an inch. So I actually did the math. So I'm going to offset 2 3/4. 2.75 is 2 3/4. And now I'm also going to turn this into my bat insulation. So let me go over to my A detail insulation layer. Obviously, that's way too big. So let's put this at 0.9 or sorry, 0.09. And I could make this actually a little bit bigger. So I'll make this what 0.1 point. Yeah, 0.1. What if I make it 0.2? Nope. 0.15. I'm fussing. I'm fussing too much. 0.14. 0.13. Okay, that's good. So I set mine to 0.13, but the point is get your insulation so that it fits in between these two lines. That's what we want. All right, so now I can do the same thing on the left side, but I'm going to just mirror my insulation. So I'm grab both of my bat insulation, and I'll just go right at the peak of the ceiling and put my ortho on, I think. And that is fine, that this is coming just like that. It's totally fine. And if you wanted, you could fillet this. That looks pretty snappy. Okay. Let's see. Few more things before we call it a night, I think. So I'm going to go back down here to my footing, and I'm going to concentrate on this drain tile, and I've got some stone here, and we have some grade that we need to contend with as well. So I'm going to start with the drain tile. So what is a drain tile? A drain tile is it used to be made of ceramic, but nowadays they make drain tiles out of plastic, I think. And it is a tube. It's 2.5 inches in diameter, so it's 5 inches across, and it is covered with tiny little holes. It has thousands and thousands of holes all along the thing, and not on the bottom, but around the three, well, around most of it. And what it does is, when it rains, right? The rain comes down, it hits the side of our house, and the siding protects the water, prevents the water from permeating or coming into the house if the house was designed correctly. And then it comes down into the grade, into the soil outside your house. And then from there, it starts to come down. And what we don't want is we don't want our water to come down and sit at the footing down here if we can. If we want to get it away from the house. So what a drain tile does is the water that is near the house will come down into this area that has some stone around this tile. And water can move through stone a lot easier and quicker than it can through the soil. And comes down and then goes into this drain tile. And this drain tile circles your house. It's all the way around your house. And then it connects to the city drain. So that water comes down, trickles down into the drain tile, and then is carried away from your house and goes into the city sewage system. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just sits here and permeates and then ends up, going into the soil. But more often than not, it goes out into, the connects to the city sewage system. So we're going to draw the drain tile, and then we're going to draw a little area of stone around it. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be shown quite so rectangularly. What the contractor normally will do is lay down the drain tile and then just pours stone in. It just kind of gets it around there. And then this represents the soil that is around the perimeter of the house. Notice that the grade is below the top of the foundation or the top of our floor. And that is one of the reasons why when you're going into your house, you often will step up into the house. There's often a stoop or a front porch or something like that. Not always, but often there is. What we want to do is we want the grade to be about 6 inches. I don't know. This is about a foot below the top of the floor. So we don't want water sitting here. We don't want it sitting here. And if it is sitting here, we certainly don't want the grade to be right here because the water is going to come right in. Water is relentless. If it finds a crack, if it finds a way to get to your house, it loves to be in there and it will try to get in. So we need to make it as hard as possible for the water to get into the house and as easy as possible for the water to go away from the house. So the top of the grade is about a foot down, and notice it's sloped away from the house. So we try to slope the grade at least close to the house down away. So when the water comes down, some of it will trickle down into the drain tile, but often much of it will roll away from the house, which is exactly what we want. So I've talked too much about this. Let's just draw it. So I'm going to start with my drain tile and I'm going to put it right down here. So it's a 2.5-inch radius drain tile. So where's my circle tool? I'm going to go with my circle tool and I'm going to find the midpoint and I'm just going to O-track over about that much. I'm just using my eyeballs here and come out 2.5 inches. And there's my drain tile. So I'm going to put it on the heavy line weight, just like my footing. So I'll just use my match properties and put it on the heavy line weight there. So then I'm going to do the stone that goes around the drain tile. And this I'm going to do in my extra light line weight. So I'm going to make that current. I'm just using my make current button here to change my layer to a detail extra light. And
Hey,
then,
Paul, I have a quick question.
yeah,
How far out did you O-track for the center of the circle?
about that far.
Okay, you just like
There's no set distance. I just used my eyeball and it went that much. So
Okay. And then what was the diameter then for the
two and a
circle?
half inches is the radius.
Thank you.
Hmm. But good for you for being diligent and being concerned about how far it should be. But it's not, it doesn't always be, it's not always in the exact location. So about that far. So same with this rectangle that I drew around the, or I just drew three lines here that is going around the drain tile. I just kind of went out that far, came straight down, and then came straight back to, define this area here. All right, so now let's draw our grade line. And I showed you the grade line is going to slope away from the house and it's going to start a foot away from the top of my footing. So let me go to my extra heavy line and use my line tool. And I'm going to O-track straight down 12 inches or 1 foot. And then I'm going straight across. That's not what I want. I want to slope down. So I'm going to turn my ortho off and I'm just going to slope it down. Just again, the eyeball method, just that much. Just so that we know that we want that water to come down and go away from our house. By the way, one of the reasons that we often, when you see houses very often around the sides of the house, we put bushes. And those bushes, well, they do a number of things. First, the roots of the bushes really lock in the soil over here so that there's less or no the soil doesn't get washed away in heavy torrential rain, but also visually it hides this piece of concrete that is behind the bushes that you would normally see because this is the grade and our this is where our roof is and our siding, and there you see a little area that has some concrete. So when you go home to whether or not you live in a apartment or house or a townhouse or whatever it is, look at where the grade and the wall meet, and very often you'll see some concrete here. And that is the side of the concrete footing that is holding up the building. Okay, so now um, I'm just going to draw like a little, a little curvy line here. Let's see what it looks like. So it's just kind of doing this right here, and a couple ways I can do that. I think what I'm going to just do, you know what? I'm gonna do this with a spline tool. All right, I was gonna try to be fancy here, but I'm just gonna use my good friend Spline Fit here, and I'm gonna draw spline. So I'm just gonna kind of come up, and if you remember, it's just a number of arcs, and I'm just kind of drawing some bulgy thing that looks like that. I'm not being too particular. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna do a spline over here. So. And I'm not being too, now I want my spline to be right here. I want it to end right here. And it's not. What it's doing is it's going to perpendicular here, but I want to go right here. So I can come down to my O snaps and turn on nearest. And then I can come up and it will snap to whatever area I want. I generally like to leave nearest unchecked unless I really need it. But I usually leave it unchecked. And the reason is it doesn't play nicely with O tracking. So if I am O tracking up and I have nearest on, I'll get all kinds of craziness and I get really frustrated uh and then I'll sit there like confused as to why why this is not working the way I want it to. And it's invariably because I have my nearest OSNAP set. So I always leave nearest off unless I want to go to some specific point on a line that is not either a midpoint or an endpoint or a perpendicular. All right, so these little guidelines here, I'm also going to put them on my extra light layer. I'm not going to put the top of my grade on the extra light layer. I'm going to leave that on the heavy dark layer. All right, so the last thing I want to do, I think before we call it quits tonight, is do um my stone that is sitting underneath that the floor slab is sitting on top of some crushed stone. And that was, I believe, a 4-inch bed of stone. So I'm going to offset the bottom of my floor slab 4 inches. Wait, was it 4 or 6? Let me make sure. 4-inch gravel. Okay. So the gravel isn't coming all the way to the end, so I'm just going to extend, and you can either use the extend tool or trim and then hold shift. It's just my go-to is use trim and hold shift. I don't know why, it's just the way that I like doing it. All right, that looks good. Let's do, should we do some hatching? Oh, why not? All right, okay, let's do some hatching. So let's hatch this floor stuff over here. So let me go to, I've got an A detail pattern layer, and that is where I put my hatching. It draws it on this light gray layer and draws it nice and lightly for me. So let's start with the grade, I think. And let me go to my hatch tool here. And let's find grade. Oh, it's not called grade, it's called earth, of course. So it's the hatch is called earth. I'm just going to select it. And then I'm just going to come into this area and it's showing it all right, but it is really, really tiny. So I'm going to bring this up, I don't know, to, I don't know, 15. Actually, you know what? That's not too bad. Maybe it's a little big. All right, you know, I'm going to leave it. So I've set mine at 15. If you wanted to make yours a little bit smaller, closer to what's on the handout, that would be fine. I wouldn't fault you. But I set mine to 15. So I'm there. That is my earth on the outside. And then here is my earth or my grade on the end. Oops. Oops. I'm putting it into I put it inside where the stone goes. So now I got to do it again. I guess what I could have done was I could have trimmed it. All right. And then I think what I'll do is I'll mirror this over on this side as well. Okay, so let's do the stone underneath. And if you remember, this was the same, this is the same hatch, except we're going to do it at a much smaller scale. So let's see. That was called, let me go to hatch, and that is called gravel. Gravel right here. And let's see. So that's too big. Mine's set to 15. Let's bring it down to, I don't know, 5. And actually, that's not too bad. So I'm going to put gravel in here. So now I've got my gravel that's running all the way across. You know what? I should have just trimmed this here. I don't really need that line there. So I'm just going to trim that. So there's my gravel. There's my earth. Oh, you know what? I need some gravel around my drain tile. So let me put that in. Beautiful. And now let's do some concrete. So the concrete, go to my hatch. There is a hatch pattern called concrete, I believe. No, it's called AR concrete, architectural concrete. So that is the hatch. And let's see. So that looks like it might be too big or too small. Let me put it at 1. Okay, so if I set it to 1 is actually pretty good. So I'm gonna do my footing and my foundation wall. That is my concrete footing and foundation wall. And I set that scale to 1 and it seems to work well. Let me go over on this side and do the same thing over here. My footing and my foundation wall over here. And then let's do our floor slab as well. So make sure that you can see the whole floor slab. I think AutoCAD has gotten a lot better, but in previous versions, if like part of it was off your screen, you wouldn't be able to hatch that area. So if ever you have that problem where you can't hatch, make sure that you can see that whole space. So let's see. There we go. Now, if you're still having a problem hatching and it's not hatching for you, make sure that all of your corners connect because AutoCAD needs to find a closed space in order to do the hatching. All right. I guess one last thing, let's put the drain tile and the grade on this side of our building sections. So I'm just going to do that quickly with my buddy Mirror here. Put on my ortho. And that I think is looking pretty good. So I think that's as far as I'm going to take it for tonight. And then the rest tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week, we will do the siding, the shingles. We'll put it in Paperspace. We'll add dimensions and leaders and all of that fun stuff. And we'll finish this off and turn it into a finished product.